The story of Mr. Les Wicks and Dr. Wicks is one of the incredible stories in public education, especially in the charter sector. They both have transformed a generation. The story of the Wicks coming to South Carolina and building Royal Live Oaks Academy is an inspiration for many. We are hoping through this documentary to tell the story of the Wicks and their contributions to the South Carolinians. Most importantly, we hope to inspire new planning members to make their vision a reality and take their first step in opening a school to meet the needs of their community.
I feel that we were placed here for a reason, and that if we are fulfilling that, then we have left a legacy. I grew up as a pastor's daughter, so my life was formed around how to be a servant, meet the needs of people where they are, not just their spiritual needs, but other needs too. My father planted churches in very remote areas in the mountains of West Virginia, so we saw poverty at a very, very deep level. I just saw my parents doing things for other people and the need to be authentic, to work hard, to put your whole self into something, to always be at your best. That was what I learned as a child and what formed me in so many ways.
I'm one of 9 children. The first 3 boys, myself and my 2 brothers. We were protective of each other. We were taught to be honest, fair, logical. I never had a job. I always created a job. I'd look for problems and look to solve them.
We met in New York City at a friend's wedding. I was there for the young lady and Les was there for the young man. And we were both in the wedding party. He was the most interesting person at the table when we had the dinner. It was love at first sight. I just wouldn't admit it, but it was.
It was delightful. I saw the sweetness. I could hear the intelligence. I fell in love with her at that point and knew that I would marry her tomorrow. I felt that comfortable. I still feel that comfortable. I'd still marry her.
My knight in shining armor, always. We got married in Brunswick, Georgia, in one of the oldest churches in America. We were staying at the cloister. That's where we honeymooned, was at the cloister. Those first few years, I was finishing my doctorate. That was within, I think, a year of us starting together. And I was finishing up working for an international company and then moving to working for City University of New York at the Staten Island campus. I was helping to build a program. We traveled a lot. Les was a pilot, and we started exploring a lot of things together and deciding where we wanted to build a house and all kinds of other things, because Les has done that among the many businesses that he's done in developing home communities and so forth.
I was attracted to a need. What's the way to solve this problem?
And I looked at it through the lens of educating individuals to be able to find their best selves and to grow and learn, both academically but as a person as well. From what I was doing there, I went to be Director of Curriculum and Instructional Development at the College Board in New York City. We had Vista Learning Centers where many children had needs that weren't being completely met in the school system and needed extra, supplemental education. But a lot of it was really to help learn how people think, especially children who are having difficulties, and some adults, because I had those as well. How do they think, and why is this an issue for them? How can we help them think differently and also give them tools to be able to solve it? We called it the secrets of learning. I mean, there's a journey from where we were to where we ended up.
She fulfilled one of my needs. one who can solve these, teach this problem, and that's kind of the corridor of shame.
Well, Les read an article in the Wall Street Journal. It was about the documentary Corridor of Shame, and he said, Karen, we have to get that, so we bought it. And in looking at that video, it was talking about 36 schools along the I-95 corridor in South Carolina where there was rampant poverty and poor test scores in a lot of those cases. So it was bringing light to those things and really calling upon the communities to do something about it.
I heard that, and I said, Karen, the problem that we're looking to solve is there. I have to go down there and I have to go down to South Carolina and find out why.
I was a transient student. I moved here in with an elderly relative, away from my parents when I was very young. A lot of students here are transient. Most students in this area are going to be free or reduced lunch. But if this was any school in the area, you could expect at least 67% free or reduced lunch. So that gives you some financial background on what it's like to be a student in this area.
There's all sorts of social challenges there, and all of that breeds educational challenges and multi-generational educational challenges. And so it's become an area that is known really around the world to some extent as an area that really needs our attention and our efforts to work in those communities. So it's a great opportunity to reach into communities of need and serve humanity and help humanity, in particular children, because that's the next generation. And if you want to break cycles of poverty, you have to start with children, because that's where it's going to happen.
And that's when Les was saying to me, is there a way that you can take the secrets of learning and we can help in some way?
I met Dr. Wicks and her husband Les 11 years ago, and I caught on to their dream. And we're all after the same goal. We're raising productive citizens in this country, and it's got to be done at the grassroots level.
We really looked to see if there was a way to help the school districts. So we did a lot of meetings in front of school boards. We talked to some superintendents. And through the process of that, many, many parents heard us and said, please don't leave us, when we weren't getting traction, shall we say, there. A former superintendent of a school district said, have you ever thought of charter schools? Well, we had not even considered that and researched that. And
we found things we couldn't do. We couldn't do this, we couldn't do that, but we found a thing we could do. So I grabbed a hold of that and said, okay, we're allowed on that track, let's go that track. And that,
as Les has always said, can't is not in our vocabulary.
That's how.
And that is absolutely right. We don't see what we can't do, we see what we can do. And we try to teach that to other people because that changes your whole perspective on everything.
I mean, I'm a graduate from this area, and traditionally this was a very anti-charter area. It wasn't a school choice environment. And so when the charter movement awakened here, there was a lot of pushback from some of the neighborhoods. And parents didn't initially trust that choice schools were going to do what was best for children. But what we have found is that when you open opportunities to parents and children, you give them more options and more choice, that you actually get better results.
We wrote the application, we formed the committee, we went before the Department of Education's committee and were approved, and then before the state charter school district board and were approved, and Rural Live Oaks began. It was not easy. Every difficulty that could be put in our path pretty much was, but we were determined that we were not going to fail.
Dr. Wicks started having meetings in the community, and then parents started getting together and to hear more about the new charter school in the community. I had two daughters we started in 2012. And I went there as a parent, interested as a parent first, and then later on I was offered a position at the new school. What I very much liked, what I heard at the time, was the model of project-based learning.
It was just so interesting because we were doing those interviews of teachers and staff in a rented, small rented office in Ridgeland. When we had our teacher training, we did that in a restaurant. because the buildings weren't ready yet. We had so much rain, it just slowed things down. Eventually, when we were ready to open, we still couldn't get in because we didn't have the certificate of occupancy yet. The first 2 days of school, we got permission from the city of Hardeeville to use their athletic fields. Parents dropped their children off there. Each staff member was assigned a certain group of kids. We had arranged to go to the various businesses in the community for children to learn how things work and to learn about their community. It was amazing what they didn't know.
We reached out to the community to come in and be a part of our grand opening. We started our first day of school off campus at City Hall, and the kids were dropped off and picked up there, and we had different people from the community there presenting and having booths for the kids to come. And they had like EMS and the Boat and RV Center set up, and veterinarians, and like just different people. We reached out to the community to come and just be a part of our first days.
And then when we came back, when we were able to get in school, we were able then to start with projects from the beginning based on their experiences over those 2 days.
We had eventually probably 16 portables in over 3 different years. And we hired teachers, and we did what we had to do to fill the need.
There was no obstacle that we would not find a way around, through, or over. And we did something that we would never have done if we could have gotten in the buildings. But it was better.
That wasn't done in 3 years. That was 3 to 4 or 5 months.
But we were showing children and parents to what can be done if you just set your mind to it. Today, you know, what we have is our vision statement of Royal Knights think critically with integrity to solve problems. That's what that was. We want them to think critically, because if you think critically, then you will be able to solve problems. We want them to do it with integrity, because they need to understand what it is to do things the right way, to do things that are ethically correct, that are morally correct. So all of those things were just part of that beginning process, and we have tried to live that every day.
Karen and I operated as a team.
Yes.
No boss.
That's right. And Les had the understanding of how to develop real estate. So from the angle of finding the spaces, helping to establish contracts and do things that were financially going to be sound. And of course, I had the educational side of it, but also from having been with Les for so many years, learning how to start things like a business, even though it is educational. And I never, ever wanted to be in this position or thought it would be something I would be able to do. And Les was always the one who told me, you can do it. You have the ability to do it. And I relied so much on him and on God to be able to do what needed to be done, and still do.
Les and Karen really are an amazing couple. They complement each other perfectly for the mission that they have chosen for this season of their lives.
What I saw from parents was they had hope, and because we did things differently, it was much more individualized to the needs of students, both educationally as well as other needs they might have. The parents were a major part of what we were doing. They had a voice. We would have meetings where they could tell us what they felt about things, and we could take that into account. The staff had a voice. I mean, it was very different than what they were accustomed to, and they were very excited about it. And we're very accepting of everyone, and that's still part of what we try to promote today, very multicultural. We started out pretty much a third African American, a third Spanish speakers, a third Caucasian. I mean, we started out with encouraging both in the student body and in the staff diversity.
Not trying to change them, but help them have
tools
to grow, to become.
To give them options so that when they left school, they had more options than they might have had before.
They have created a culture in that school where students believe that they can be excellent, believe that they do have potential, that they see that God has given them a unique potential as an individual. And I think Les and Karen have really sought to unlock the potential of these individuals within this larger group called Royal Live Oaks.
So I started here in 2014, barely 8 years ago. And we started in trailers, like it's not a real school building. And it's really hard, especially when it's raining. The students will have to travel from one building to another to get into the other class.
Well, first was to define the area, what the area would have to be like, the land, how much land we'd have to have that. And secondly, define all the things that were available and not available, and how about funding? I spent probably 3-4 months traveling about different schools, different areas, colors, shapes, beams, types of doors, and we picked all those things out so we knew exactly what that building would look like before it began.
And for the land, you approached the Gray family, Richard Gray from Grayco, who owned that land, and showed them the tax advantages of donating the land to the school rather than buying it. It had to be for a school. It could not be used for any other purpose. There was the process of getting all of the documents together, because that was going into the marketplace to have investors so that we would have the money to do the building, and that took a lot of time, and there were a lot of delays, and then there were things happening in the country. By the time we started building, there was a shutdown of the government, so then you couldn't have any money flowing, so contractors aren't going to build if they don't think they're going to get payment, and then tariffs, and then all kinds of other things that were happening in the world, in our country, that had a direct effect. It took an extra 4 years to be able even to break ground, but we ended up, with an $18.2 million, 70,000 square foot facility. And then when we occupied the building, the end of January 2020, we all know what happened in March. So then we had to learn about doing virtual. We had to have enough computers, one-to-one, hotspots, all kinds of things we had to come up with. There was funding for a lot of these things, but the funding process, especially when it's federal, is through reimbursement. You have to have the money up front to do it. And then there are the plans that have to be written, there are approvals that have to happen at the state level. So all those things can slow a lot of things down. It's a major process in all of the bureaucracy that goes with it. Personally, that wears you out. It really does. You get very discouraged at times.
I think that the pain of school leadership is not well understood. And too often, people look at school leadership or the beginning of schools, the starting of schools, as something that's done for profit, or is done for name, or done for shine, for glory. But this is not a job you can do without a great deal of suffering. And what I remember most is the number of hours that Dr. Wicks and Les Wicks spent just walking the grounds. And they just both spent a lot of time completing paperwork and walking the grounds and making improvements and trying to improve safety and trying to meet the requirements for the Office of School Facilities. And there was so much suffering to establish a school choice in an area where they already weren't welcome. I'm not sure if the average person can understand how much skin you have in the game when you put yourself in that position. So Dr. Wicks and Les Wicks, having lived through it, have a different and a new understanding for how painful it can be to help people who might even know that they need your help. And then once you finally get something started, what is required to maintain it is a different kind of pain. So I wish that more people knew what that passion cost you in terms of sleepless nights and long days and lots of planning and a lot of accountability. I wish they knew.
So when you open a charter school in the state of South Carolina, you're given a life cycle of 10 years. And at the end of 10 years, you have to come back to the authorizer, which in this instance is us, and you have to demonstrate that you deserve another 10 years. You don't get to just open a school and run it forever. It's accountable. You have to show results.
The Institute recommendation for the renewal is to approve the renewal for Rural Live Oaks Academy, but also, if you don't mind, Dr. Karen Wicks, the school executive director, is here to give you a little bit of information.
You know, recently I've been asked a lot about our story. We thought we'd be here 10 years ago and where we think we'd be 10 years from now. And we absolutely expect to be here 10 years from now. And it's because of people. I started with them because they're part of that story. I started with you all because it's part of that story. Our executive team, and of course Les. I always say there would be no Rural Live Oaks without Les. We want our students to find things that they can be passionate about. Our values are around academic excellence and around social-emotional health, integrity. Going out into the world and making a significant, positive change. That's our passion. That's why we do what we do. I've been asked, how many more years are you going to do this? As long as God allows me.
So after that presentation, the Institute would ask for the recommendation is for the approval of the charter renewal for Rural Live Oaks Academy.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve charter renewal of Rural Live Oaks Academy. Do I hear a motion?
Make the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
Second.
Any final questions or comments? Hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay? None, so the motion to approve the charter renewal for Rural Live Oaks Academy has been approved. Congratulations.
10 years of labor from Les and from Karen have not been in vain. That they have accomplished so much in that community, and they were rewarded for their effort with another 10 years on their charter, and we certainly hope and pray there'll be another 10 years after this and another, because whoever comes after Les and Karen, and there's always somebody that comes after us, if they continue to hold to the vision and to the mission of what, and the energy and the dedication that Karen and Les have put into that school and into that community, then I have no doubt that it will be successful for many decades to come.
I really rely on my spiritual practices and my knight in shining armor who's sitting right next to me here, and my sisters a lot for emotional support. I think for any school leader, the level of pressure anymore for all the things that you have to do, and it's hard not to burn out, and they're the issues that people face. You lose people who are dear to you. You lose family members. There's a lot that goes into all of that, and I have to make sure we stay on course always, that we do not lose our focus, that it's always going to be about the kids. There's an expression, this mountain is before you to show it can be moved. Well, I have that on at my desk because sometimes I need to remember that. There are some days that we have to remember that God thinks we're up to the challenge, and He's with us through it, which makes all the difference in the world.
We are 10 years, and we are 10 years strong in the community. It's my understanding that our waiting list is growing every year. Not only that, we have the recurring families all the time. You know, the parents want their children together in one school, and that's what our school offers. It offers elementary, middle, and high school the opportunity for the whole family to be together.
Jasper County is going to continue to diversify. This was one of the first schools of choice. But since then, there are now lots of schools of choice. There are more schools coming. So Rural Live Oaks Academy is going to be its story and how it plays out, as any school is. So right now, the story is that two founders came into the community. They wanted to do something great, and they made it happen.
And it's just been a wonderful relationship to see the school grow from being in these portable modular classrooms for so many years, and then to now have this beautiful facility full of vibrant young people in Hardyville, and having such an impact not only on the children in that community, but on the community itself. And now we see housing developments and commercial growth happening around that school because of the effort of two people who decided, a dozen years ago that they were going to leave their home in the northern part of the United States and move to South Carolina, to an area of high need, and they were going to make a difference.
What Dr. Wicks and Mr. Les did is really beneficial to this community, because these students has experienced a great difference. We have a great faculty, and they are supported and provided with the support they need.
Students who are graduating and leaving us are going to be more prepared for the workforce, not just for college, but to be independent, critical thinkers who can solve problems. We're focused on having them be prepared to be successful in whatever they do. We're actually preparing them for jobs so where they can stay local as well, which is going to help build our community.
I mean, it's a story that promotes in people in the community the possibility for change, possibility for growth, even in themselves.
I charge you graduates with thinking about, just for today, what can I do that changes the world?
That this is a school where your children come and leave proficient. As long as we can do that, as we can demonstrate that we are a viable schooling option, where children come in and leave better than they came, ready for the working world and ready to be proficient workers, the legacy of Royal Live Oaks is going to live on for a long time.
The legacy I would want to leave behind for the leaders who come after us is that we can see where children are being successful, both academically, but as people, and that they go on to do things that will benefit the community, that will give back to their community, that will have taught them what they need to know in order to be successful, however they define that in their lives. That would be something that I would hope that any leader would want to continue. And I'm always looking for a successor, because you have to. You never know from one minute to the next what might happen to you. To choose people who will keep that alive, who will stay the course, who will not forget what it's really about. Every decision that I make is, how does it affect kids first?
I want to encourage our helpers in this event, the teachers and the professionals that help run the school. We want to teach them that they can do it also. It isn't just us. We all can do it. And it's a hand-to-hand, help each other out, make it happen.
The thing that sticks out to me the most about them is their heart for children, their love for children, and that guides everything they do, always.
What they've done here at this school, the administration, the staff, the teachers, the parents, it's all become a mission. The culture here is happy. The culture here is growing. It's excited. When a new child comes to this school, immediately he's caught up in the camaraderie. It's got every place to go. It's grown now from K through 8 to K through 12. The graduates now that are further in their education, whether they go to college or not, they've been in the habit now of learning. And that's what's going to make the future.
Success is never an accident. Success happens because of the efforts of great individuals. And it happens because of the efforts of great leaders. And that's what we see in Karen and Les. Hundreds and hundreds of lives have been transformed because two people, two individuals, collectively made a decision to start a journey because they believed that every child deserves the opportunity to reach their God-given potential.
I don't really feel proud as much as I feel enormously blessed, because it wasn't just us. It always takes the buy-in of the community in order for you to accomplish anything of great value. And I feel that we were placed here for a reason, and that if we are fulfilling that, then we have left a legacy.